Would you like to introduce yourself?
My name is Eric Christian. I'm a lifelong resident here at Rains County. I'm running for County Commissioner in Precinct 2.
Excellent. And what led up to that moment, or what was that moment where you said, this is what I want to do?
You know, time is a valuable thing in my life. The stage of life I'm in, I've got 4 children, a wife, my wife that I've had, 20 years we've been married. So timing-wise, it fit into the schedule. As far as career-wise with me, career-wise with my wife, the 4 kids, the stage of life that they're in, the timing was ideal. In Precinct 2, the commissioner that we've had in there, he's been in there for years. And so timing-wise with him stepping down from that position, it lined up perfect for our lives.
And what do you see as the biggest challenges that you're going to face in this role, and how do you plan to handle them?
You know, the biggest challenges that I see in this particular role is obviously maintaining the roads and our infrastructure with a limited budget. Nobody wants to see a bunch of big tax hikes. And so maintaining those roads with the limited budget that we have. And then the next thing is dealing with growth that comes into the county. Obviously, lithium mining is a talk. There are residential inflow and surges of potential subdivisions and housing additions that come in. And so we want that to be...
Something went wrong. Please try again.
We want that to be healthy and regulated, and we don't want anything to just sneak in on us. Obviously, to prioritize our fiscal budget that I have to work with, that's going to be a top priority and completely necessary to make sure that budget, because we don't want to burden taxpayers. None of the commissioners are going to want to burden our taxpayers here. I see seeking grants, that's going to be a big thing. Are there any grant opportunities on our roads? We'll look into that. And to listen to the constituents out there, to just get feedback from everybody involved. That's
okay. And when you step into a situation, because this will be your first time as a commissioner, right? So when stepping into a situation where you don't already have experience, how do you feel that you'll approach it to move it forward?
To step into this situation, commissioner, political situation with the county, that's some experience that I haven't had. And so, my goal and what I'm focused on is to step into this position with humility and respect and just a high level of common sense and communication throughout this entire thing. As far as to be in the position, I think it's going to be a big key to consult with experts on all the topics. I've got a network of engineers, civil engineers that I deal with, a relationship with the fellow commissioners, and because of my background, a relationship with commissioners in surrounding counties. And so I'll be able to pull on all those relationships. And obviously I want to apply my conservative background on all aspects of stepping into this position. We want to make decisions with the county. We want to make them based on data and good feedback. We don't want any guesswork out there.
Okay. With this position, there are some limits to its authority. How do you plan to work within those limits to still create positive outcomes for the county?
The county commissioner's authority, it's limited to the precincts. And so the one thing we don't have the ability to make laws or to override any state regulations. So those are the main limits. And so, we've got road maintenance, and we've got our emergency, all the emergency services. Those will be things that will be overseen by the commissioner. So with that and budget allocation within the court's approval, those are the limits and responsibilities on the position. So the plan to handle those, we're going to work. We're going to build coalitions with the commissioners that are there, and good key relationships. I'm going to advocate for Precinct 2 with good communication with the people that live in Precinct 2. partner where we can and where the opportunities arise. We're going to partner with private entities and any type of just any opportunities that we have to just work with the community.
So for you guys out there watching, we're just going to pause for a moment while we get our background noise handled. All right, and we are back. So who do you rely on for input when making difficult decisions, and how do you weigh conflicting advice?
So first and foremost, I wait on God. I run everything by Him, and that's the key to all my decisions that I make in life, period. And so, I run in that direction first. After that, I've got a strong family base. And so I run things as far as any, personal decisions or tough decisions that my family has to make. Of course, I run them by my family. It's a strong base that we work off of. As far as personal business decisions that I run by, I've got just a fantastic network of human beings in my life. I've got a good personal relationship with, for the most part, the pastors of the community here. And then we go to church in Hopkins County. So I lean on those guys.
All right, and we are back again. So you were talking about how you rely on your community, all types of community individuals. How do you weigh that conflicting advice?
So when I get this advice, depending on what the topic is, I weigh that on my conservative beliefs, first and foremost. And then I weigh whatever the topic may be. I weigh it on how does this respect the community, the property of the community, and then as far as individual liberties, how does this affect people's individual liberties? I try to always prioritize the data in any situation that I have to make, and look for long-term decisions, like what does this look long-term, and not just jump on the short-term victory.
Okay, and so how do you feel you will decide which issues should be prioritized when time, funding, or resources are limited?
The top priorities in the community, from what the feedback that I get and things that you read and things that you hear throughout the community, it's the essentials. It's public safety, and then it's our roads and bridges, and the infrastructure of those roads and bridges. As far as our roads, that's our community members, that's their livelihood. To be able to get around safe and not tear vehicles up and not have issues, not have flooding issues where they can't get through roads. And so those are the top issues that they come to the surface in any of the conversations that we had. As far as how do you handle those, I think it's good communication in the community, my precinct too, and gathering the information. And staying on top, staying in front of these issues before you hear them, just uptown, outside of your precinct. I want to hear what the issues are from my neighbors out there in precinct too. So good communication.
Okay, and how do you feel you'll balance listening to constituents with making tough decisions that may not be popular?
Listening is the key. It's the key to all this. It's what we're sitting here doing right now is just talking and listening. And so with that being said, I think, and this is one thing that I've seen throughout this, all the people running for positions here in this campaign, communication, again, it's key, and it's going to be something that I continually come back to. I think regular meetings, whether it be, I've seen good turnout on some of our community meetings that we've had throughout this. I've seen some that don't have as good a turnout. So I think community meetings,
Something went wrong.
whether
Please try
it be,
Sorry, something went wrong. Please try again.
whether it be community meetings with in my precinct 2 or at a community center at a centralized place with other precincts involved. I think the communication is going to be key to that as well. And so I want the residents of Rains County, I want them to be able to trust that we're making good decisions.
Okay. Excellent. When a decision you were involved in draws public criticism, how do you handle that professionally and personally?
So personally, I take that to God. And whatever the teachings of the Bible are, so I dive into those scriptures. That's not my weight to carry on a personal level. So I take that to God. On a professional level, whatever the topic may be, I just respond with the facts and why the decisions were made that were made. And so the data, obviously, you just take the data to the situation. Doing that, I think, again, like we talked about at the last question, I think public meetings, whether it be a centralized, so all the precincts could go, or if it was a local precinct too, something with that. I think we do a community center and then get together and talk about that. And then, we're blessed to have these Facebook groups where the community, a ton of people follow, a handful of these community groups. And so there's a lot of good dialogue, and you're reaching, you're reaching people of Rains County with social media that you maybe not get them, schedule-wise or what have you, you might not get them out to a community center.
So it sounds like that included a bit of your plan on how to make sure that the people that don't have such a loud voice are still heard. So we'll skip that question later on. Good deal. So tell us about a project or a situation that didn't go as planned and what you learned, as well as how you recovered from it.
Yeah, so I worked on a warehouse project throughout the COVID stage of life that we had. And so throughout that project, we had timeline issues with products. We had some weather issues in the middle of that. And so, like I said, we had a warehouse project where the costs looked like they were beginning to rise. Our timeline was slipping, and so potential or inevitable chargebacks from contractors who have equipment and labor on hand. And so what I learned in that particular situation and how we were inevitably met our goals in that job is we created contingency plans with alternate specified materials. So we worked with the engineers on that particular project, found some alternate specified materials that were approved, and so met those deadlines with material, and then just good communication with the project managers, the owners on that project. And so it goes a long way when somebody knows ahead of time that there's going to be some delays. And so immediately I realized, stay ahead of all the delays, stay ahead of any potential price increases that we had. So where does that apply to county? That's the same way I'll approach it. It's just with proactive, hands-on approach to any projects that we have that are to begin to get out of the lines on anything. And then to plan with the weather. As far as roads, there's just a handful of months where these guys can actually get out and do some of the repairs that they need to do. So just take advantage of that schedule.
Okay, excellent. Can you share an example of working with someone you strongly disagreed with to reach a solution?
Yeah. So there was a project that we had. It was it was an institutional, it was a college project, and as far as the project went, it was obvious with pre-bids, pre-construction meetings that as far as some of our beliefs were a little bit different in the way that we do things, just from comments that were made on there, as far as like government outreach or in reach on some of the aspects of the project. And so the way that we handled that was it was obvious that there were some potential issues and friction that we could have out there. So again, we stayed ahead of that, and we communicated, we over-communicated where we thought that there might be an issue, and we found common ground on the entire project by being respectful. There was common ground to be had on all of it, and we built lifelong relationships on that project.
Okay. How will you handle situations where a decision could benefit someone you know personally, politically, or financially?
On that, if it was a personal relationship, to me, I would recluse myself from any situation where I felt like morals and ethics were being stepped on. And just immediately just step away from that situation, because we don't want to. I know that there with Texas ethics and codes and laws, I personally do not want to overstep any of those boundaries. I would just step away from whatever situation by being completely transparent, and just put that connection out there. I want transparency. I would want anybody to know exactly where I am on this, where there could be an issue. So disclose those relationships just right up front. I feel like, as far as the county goes, as far as me being elected Precinct 2 commissioner, the Rains County residents in whole, they're put first over any individual in any situation. So that's the way I would look at that.
Okay, excellent. At the end of your term, how should residents measure whether you were successful in this role?
There's just a few things that I feel like are going to stand out on that. Obviously, as far as how I would be and how I would see myself measured successfully, I don't want people to look at the 4 years that I was in there and say, oh my goodness, the taxes, there are substantial tax increases. I don't want people, I would see that as a failure. If there was some, any type of substantial tax increase that put undue stress on our Rains County residents, I would want people to look over my term and say, these roads are better. These high traffic areas, these flooding issues, we felt heard, and something was done. Was it perfect? No, might not be perfect. Might not be in the budget to make it perfect, but we felt heard, and we felt like something was done. And so both of those are keys. I would want, as far as success goes and how I would feel like I would be measured by success, I would want the Rains County residents to feel like we had healthy growth without too much, government infringement on the growth that we had.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And if you could realistically accomplish only one meaningful improvement during your term, what would it be and why?
As far as to talk to the voters, to my Precinct 2 residents, I would say that the roads, there are some roads that when you talk to these people, and I know our road and bridge department, from the communication that I have with them, and even before I got into this election, they do a good job with the small budget that they have. And so when, if you're persistent, they'll get out and they'll handle something. And so I think focusing on the roads, being transparent with the people in my precinct, and just making them feel heard. That's going to be just top priority to me.
Okay, excellent. So prior to today, excuse me, I had reached out to our community and asked if there were any questions.
Right.
And so I do have some community questions that I'm going to ask. The first is about taxes, funding, and county resources.
Right.
And it's on property taxes and appraisal oversight.
Mm-hmm.
What is your stance on reducing or eliminating property taxes for homeowners? And do you believe there should be limits or additional oversight on the Rains County Appraisal District and its board of directors?
Good question. Interesting question. Hot topic question. So as far as doing away with the property tax, from my understanding, the Commissioner's Court, that would be out of our reach to do away with. As far as keeping those taxes with minimal increases, that is definitely top priority to me. I don't want to jump in there and see any big tax hikes, by no means. As far as the Rains County Tax Appraiser's Office, I think for any positions, I think oversight and insight is good on all positions. And so I think to keep an eye on it, you don't want people feeling like their property value is just they're always seeing this maxed out increase on their property values. And so if I was going to throw an idea out there, maybe there's a group that's created that oversees that tax office. That's a potential. But no, I think oversight is good as far as tax increases go.
Okay. Still on taxes, but on a non-tax funding for animal services
Right.
is the topic. So what steps would you take to pursue grants, fundraising, or other non-tax funding to support an animal control officer or animal shelter services in Rains County?
You know, to my, I'll say it was a surprise. I knew it was an issue because you look at social media, you know it's an issue. You go within the city limits in the middle of the night, early mornings, you see animals. And so I know, but it turns out this is one of our probably top 3 hot topic items is animals. So when you consistently hear that there's an issue that needs to be addressed, it's a top priority. And so I know, as far as just from the research that I've done, I know that there are some grants that we could look into. There's a Texas Spay and Neuter pilot program. This thing's got millions of dollars. I haven't dug into it enough to see the hoops and the grant writing on that particular program, but I know that there's grant programs. On top of grant programs that could fund this, there are just unlimited nonprofits and businesses that would, just talking to the community, they would pour into a program like that, just something, a shelter, and then even an employee that these community people you see on Facebook, they'll make a post. They've got an issue, they've got an animal that's a problem. There's nobody, there's no answer. And so it's a top priority. It would be fantastic to have someone to find the funding somewhere with grants and individuals and nonprofits that could pour into this and make something happen for Rains County.
Excellent. So on the topic of infrastructure and traffic safety, Highway 1969 intersection, what actions, if any, would you support to improve traffic flow and safety at the Highway 1969 intersection?
So that's another hot topic item. You're going to hear it at any of these forums you go to, any community events that we have. 19 to 69. This thing backs up. First Monday, Friday evening, pretty Saturday, Sunday after church, the intersection's backed up. And so obviously it's an issue. County commissioners, it's going to be somewhat limited as far as, it's TxDOT that handles those state highways. But with that being said, I attended a year and a half ago, I think it was, the town hall where TxDOT's engineer came out and he addressed questions. And so I do have some insight from that meeting, the town hall event that there was over a year ago. So from my understanding from that meeting, and haven't seen any follow-up since then, but the next thing that it sounds like that we'll see is some turn lanes, some right on red top turn lanes. And so I know the state on Highway 69, they've got some right-of-way where they can expand enough to where we can get some right turn lanes. So 19 going south, you're going to be able to just go right on red there. 19 north, you're going to be able to turn on 69. So that would alleviate some of it for a bit of time. One thing, there's an overpass. There's talk of an overpass. It was talked about at this town hall. Myself, personally, and this is going to be, you're going to have some people on this side, some on the other, talking to the business owners in town over the last few months. I don't know, it's going to hurt those businesses. So an overpass, myself, just sitting here talking, the overpass, I don't know how strong I am about an inevitable overpass. I don't know how inevitable the overpass is. I know a loop was another potential. It really wasn't dove into as far as their plans. I know a potential loop that could also hurt the businesses. So as far as what I'm going to advocate for, as far as short term and to make something happen, is the right on red as far as on 19 and 69 where people can move quicker.
Okay. With technology, privacy, and public trust, we have a question regarding flock license plate recognition cameras. This is a two-part. So the first part. Recently, flock automatic license plate recognition cameras have been installed in parts of Rains County, including multiple cameras near the FM 47 and Highway 276 intersection. What is your position on the use of these cameras in the county?
So my personal response on this, I'm leery of any type of surveillance on the citizens of the county. And so personally, I'm not a fan of this type of surveillance. I know other countries that you can read about, you can do research on, they have them. It's heavy surveillance is what this is. And so personally, I'm not a big fan of having these cameras. I know that there are benefits for law enforcement. There are those benefits. So with that being said, and that's where I'm at, I'm very leery of it. I think if it's out of the commissioner's reach, and these cameras were to continue to progress, you have to have, to answer the second part of it, you have to have strong audits. And where does that data go? It can't be, that data has to stay in the right hands. And as far as that data goes, when does that data, when is it done away with? Whoever does receive that data, how long does that stay on the books before that data is rendered, discarded of? Where does it go when it's discarded of? I think all those regulations are top items if the cameras are to stay in place. We have to know about the data. So that's where I'm at with the cameras.
Okay. Some cities have discontinued their use due to concerns about privacy, accountability, and legal risks.
Well,
Are you willing to review or reevaluate these systems, and what safeguards do you believe should be in place if they are used?
Absolutely. I would be willing to review these. Knowing what I know about them, I definitely need to dig in more and do more research on these cameras. But that research is worth being done, and so I do stand behind. Let's dig into that more before we progress further with those.
Right on. So, environmental protection and future development, lithium mining and water protection. With lithium mining potentially coming to Rains County in the future, what is your plan to protect local water systems and ensure residents continue to have access to safe, clean drinking water?
So as far as lithium mining, that's another hot topic item. It seems like it's like you hear it, at any of these events that we go to. It's something, and it's been a buzz in the county for months now. And so myself, I'm pro as far as energy independence. I'm pro energy independence. With that being said, I'm non-negotiable on our water quality and that being compromised. I think as far as the mining companies, anyone who does business in Rains County, I think it's extremely important that they're regulated. I think to require rigorous environmental training as far as pre-drill and post-drill. It's rigorous testing on the aquifers to make sure that they're not being compromised, whatever depth that is. We're going to need to see the data because that's our groundwater. That's our livelihood here. I think strict regulations. From the research that I've done, I know the Railroad Commission has some strong specifications and requirements that they require, and so I think we could potentially maybe follow suit with some of that. The railroad, the direction they've gone with their requirements that they require these companies is, and we got to keep the water safe. So.
Okay, excellent. I know on Facebook there's a lot of questions that have been thrown around regarding people that are running for election.
Right.
And are there any of those questions that you've seen that you would just like to take a moment to respond to?
I haven't seen any questions that I don't feel like I feel like we've covered them here as far as hot topic items and stuff. So I feel like we've covered them.
All right, cool. So is there anything else that you would like to say to the people out there that you're looking to have vote for you?
Here's what I would have to say. Rains County voters, if elected Precinct 2 Commissioner, I just want you to know I'm going to put my whole heart into this thing. I want to be transparent and accessible to everybody in my Precinct 2, but not only Precinct 2, all Rains County. This is where my heart's at. This is where I raise my children at. And so I want to work for this county. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.